Hello and welcome to the daily number workout. Today we're on the number 40. So let's write this in word form. A little different each day. So 40, F-O-R-T-Y, 40. And since our number has a 0 in the ones place, that would be even. And let's check out the factors. So factors of 40. Let's see what you have. If you didn't have some that I'm going to talk about, add them in. 1 times 40, of course. 2 times 20 equals 40. 3 doesn't go in. 4 does. 4 times 10. And we have 5 times 8. 6 doesn't go in evenly. 7 doesn't go in evenly. So we are done. So we have 8 factors. And because of that, it's not prime. Because that would mean it only has 2 factors. We have 8. All right, let's do our multiples. So this is really easy. On this one, we're just multiplying the front end because we just will add the 0. So 1 times 4 is 4 with a 0. That would be 140. 2 40s would be 80. 3 40s would be 120. So that would be 3 times 4 is 12 with the 0. 4 40s would be 160. 4 times 4 is 16 with the 0. 5 40s would be 200 because 5 times 4 is 20 with a 0. 6 40s would be 240 because 6 times 4 is 24. 7 40s would be 280 because 7 times 4 is 28. 8 40s would be 320 because 8 times 4 is 32. 9 40s would be 360 because 9 times 4 is 36. And they add the 0. And then, of course, 10 would be 40 with a 0. So there we have it. Wonderful, easy multiples of 40. Let's move on to our next categories, which is fractions, decimals, percents, and ratio. Now, this one's going to be tricky. Many of us might have done different things. I'm just going to show you the quickest way to get an equivalent fraction to go to lowest term. So we have 40 over 100. That would be 40 hundredths. So I'm going to write it down here, 40 hundredths. How we would write it, 40 hundredths. Now, today we're going to go to an equivalent fraction that's going to be the lowest term fraction. So 40 does not go into 100 evenly, but 20 does. So we're going to be dividing by 20. And you're like, whoa, how do you do that? Craziness. All right, so we know 20 times 2 equals 40. So we know if we divide 40 by 20, we get 2. And then 20 times 5 is 100. So if we divide 20 into 100, we get 5. So this number here is considered 2/5 is the fraction in lowest term. So find a way to write lowest term somewhere and point to that fraction right there, lowest term. So that's getting it down to the smallest numbers possible. 2/5 can't go any lower. All right. So we're using this as our greatest common factor. So up here, circle the 20 and write greatest common factor. And you'll be learning about this when you do your fraction unit, but it's nice to kind of get a little glimpse of it. You might hear about this once or twice while we're doing it, and then it will relate. All right, our decimal, of course, is always referring to hundredths. So we have 0 and 40 hundredths. because we're going all the way to the hundredths there. So 0 and 40 hundredths. Now again, this can be reduced again as a decimal. This 0 here does not have to be there because that's nothing. We can eliminate that, and it could be, and I'm going to try to draw it down here, 0 and 4/10. So this is the hundredths place. We're stopping it in the hundredths place because we're talking about hundredths or 100 days, but we could actually just write it as 0 and 4/10. So 4/10, I'm sorry, 40. 4/10 is the same as 40 hundredths. And you say, wait a minute. So 4 dimes is the same as 40 pennies, right? So 4 dimes is the same as 40 hundredths. Both are 40 cents. All right, just a little extra there. And of course, that would represent 40%. So if I walked into a store and the item we were buying was 40% off, we would get 40 cents off of every dollar. Let's move on. Our ratios would look like this: 40:100 or 40:100. All right, let's move on to our next category, area and perimeter. All right, as you can see, we've got lots and lots to do with area and perimeter, as well as our volume, because of all our factor pairs that are up there. So I'm going to collect this up so I can move my paper up, because we're going to really get a move on this. All right, so area. So let's start off with, and I'm going to kind of draw mine a little smaller today just so I can fit everything on. I'm sorry, 40 by 1. And then I'm going to have a 1 by 40. So over here, I'm going to write area equals 40 by 1, which equals 40 square units, because it's 1, 2 dimensional. And then that would be as perimeter, 40 plus 1 plus 40 plus 1, which equals 82 units. All right, let's go for this one. 1 by 40, which equals 40 square units. The perimeter on that one would be a 1 plus 40 plus 1 plus 40. And all we did was change the order, and that would be 82 as well. All right, let's move on to the next one, which would be a 20 by 2. And we're just drawing a rectangle, doesn't have to be anything. 20 by 2 is our next category. And we can also draw it as 2 by 20. Just draw a square or rectangle. All right, so our area would equal 20 times 2 for this first one, which equals 40 square units. Our perimeter now is going to change because not all the sides, like the most of all the sides of our cubes in this one here are being shown, but here we start to hide them up, so then there's less perimeter. So this would be 20 plus 1 plus 20 plus 1 equals, well, 20 plus 20 is 40, 1 plus 1 is 2, so that would be 42 units. Wow, almost cut it in half, didn't we, by just stacking them 2 by 2. And then the next one, of course, would be 2 times 20, which equals 40 square units. And our perimeter would be 1 plus 20. We're just changing up the order here. Still would be 42 units. All right, next, we're doing 4 by 10. So 10 across, 4 tall. Again, just draw a rectangle and represent it 10 by 4. And then this one's going to be a 4 by 10. And we're going to write that out again. 10 times 4 equals 40 square units. The perimeter would equal 10 plus 4 plus 10 plus 4. So 10 plus 10 is 20. 4 plus 4 is 8. So this would be 28. See how once you start making it closer to a square, you get less perimeter because you're getting more blocks in the middle. All right, let's go on. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22. All right, I just want to get my cubes out here. So, and then the next one would be a 4 by 10, which we haven't written down yet, and that would be 40 square units. If you haven't written it, write it down. So this would be 4 plus 10 plus 4 plus 10. All right, so there we go. So let me do 4 plus 10. Let's get this show on the road. I want you to be able to see it, to believe it. So there we go. That's what we are working on right now. 10 by 4. And let's go on to 5. 5. And so let's get this one. This would be a 5 by 8. So 8, let's draw our 8 by 5 first. And then draw our 5 by 8. Move that up so you can see it. A lot going on today. So our area equals 8 times 5, which equals 40 square units. Hopefully you can see that. Let me check to make sure you can see what we're doing. So this is the one we're doing. That's square, that rectangle. And the perimeter would be 8 plus 5 plus 8 plus 5 equals, well, I know 8 plus 8 is 16, and 5 plus 5 is 10, so that would be 26 units. So that only broke it off to 16. Yep, that's it. All right, next one. 5 times 8 equals 40 square units. And our perimeter would be 5 plus 8 plus 5 plus 8, which is 26 units. All right. And then I think that's it. 1, 2, 3. Yep, there was 4 factor pairs. All right. Now we're going to be cooking into our volumes. Volumes get crazy. Let's see how we can do with our volumes and save space here on our paper. So I'm going to put that up there. And the first one we're going to do is we're just redrawing what we drew up there, making it 40, and it's going to be 1 deep by 1 tall. So I'm just adding depth. So this would be volume equals, and I'm going to try to move that up so we can have enough space here. Volume equals for this one here, 40 by 1 by 1 equals 40 cubic units. Okay, now we're going to stand that up. So I'm just going to come down here and stand it up. So now we have 1 by 1 by 40. 1 by 1 by 40. Again, equals cubic units. All right, and then we're going to do the square in the front, make it 40 deep. 1 by 40 by 1 tall. All right, let's go on to 2. The next one would be 20 by 2 by 1. So let's draw that. 20 across by 2 deep by 1 tall. Move that up so you can see better. 20 by 2 by 1. And of course, 20 times 2 is 40, times 1 is 40 cubic units. All right. And let's go over here to do the next one, which will be a 20 by 1 by 2. So that would look like this, 20 by 1 by 2 tall. 20 by 1 by 2. Again, 40 cubic units. All right, we need to change this up to 2 by 20 by 1. So we're just flip-flopping these, finding different orders we can put this in. So 2 wide by 20 long by 1 tall. So that's going to represent that 2 by 20 by 1. Again, still 40 cubic units. And then we're going to change that up 2 times 1 times 20. So we're going to flip-flop the last two numbers. And so that would look like this, 2 by 1 back by 20 tall. So we're just drawing a representation. It doesn't have to be perfect. 2 by 1 by 20. All right, now we need to put the 1 first. 1 by 20 by 2. So that would be 1 wide. Whoops, I got to move it up again. 1 wide by 20 deep by 2 tall. Oops, that's a little wild. Now, do you see that is ridiculous, but I don't care. 1 by 20 by 2. Boom. Equals 40 cubic units. Sometimes it just isn't going to look pretty. And our next one would be 1 by 2 by 20. And to write that would be, let's put it up here. 1 by 2 deep by 20 tall. Yeah. Out of control. Let's see. Again, terrible, terrible, terrible. 1 by 2 by 20. Ignore how bad that looks. I bet yours is way better than mine. All right, let's go on to the next category, which was using the 4. So volume equals 4 times 10. So we're going to do 10 times 4 times 1. And, yours might be in a different order than mine. Just check them off, find where you wrote it down right. If you didn't, write it down. If you wrote it, check it off. And that way you can keep track, because we're going to all be a little different because we all do things differently. So we have 10 across by 4 deep by 1 tall. And hopefully my rectangular prisms start to get a little better. And then we're going to have a 10 by 1 by 4. So that means it is 10 across by 1 deep by 4 tall. And we're pretending because we're just doing the best we can. 10 by 1 by 4. All right. So next, so real quick, we have this family. We have this family. Now we've got a new family here. And we're going to do 4s first now. Oops. So this is width, depth, height. So I'll move my paper up so we can see how we're doing. So 4 across by 10 deep by 1 tall. Four by 10 by 1. Then we have 4 across by 1 deep by 10 tall. So basically we're just standing that same shape up. 4 by 1 by 10. Okay. All right, onward to the next one, which would be 1 by 4 by 10. So 1 wide by 4 deep by 10 tall. 1 by 4 by 10. And then the next one is a 1 by 10 by 4. So that would be 1 across, 10 deep by 4 tall. 1 by 10 by 4. All right. Yeehaw, that's done for that family. That's 6 of them. Last but not least, 5 times 8. So we're going to do 5 times 8 times 1 equals 40 cubic units. So we're going to do 5 across by 8 deep by 1 tall. So again, we're just practicing and drawing our rectangular prisms. And this would be 5, 8, 1. All right, let's do it again, but let's change up the 8 and the 1 to 1 times 8. And we would get 5 by 1 by 8 tall. So we're just standing up that same rectangular prism we just did, 5 by 1 by 8. Now let's put the 8 first. See how many ways you can do it. It's a competition. All right, so we have 8 wide by 5 deep by 1 tall. So I'm just drawing to represent what we're doing. 8 by 5 by 1. Then we have 8 by 1 by 5. So we're just standing that same one up. Maybe not exact look, but close enough. 8 by 1 by 5. All right. Looking good. So we have one more. We got to start with the 1. 1 times 8 times 5 and 1 times 5 times 8. So hopefully you're finding all these. It's a challenge to find all the different ways that you can manipulate the cubes. All right, so we have 1 wide by 5 deep by 8 tall. That's our representative of a rectangular prism. And then we have 1 by 8 by 5. 1 by 8 by 5. And there we have it. We are done. Look at all of those ways we can create 40 cubes. It's amazing how it works. So this one is a 5 by 8, the last one we just did. So you can see we can look at it this way. Whoops. 8 by 5 by 1 tall, or we can flip it up and now it's an 8 by 1 by 5 tall. We can turn it this way. Whoops. Let's see. Stay together, you guys. So now we have a 5 by 1 by 8. So when we do it this way, when we're walking across and walking back and going up, when we start doing coordinates, that's what we always want to do. Is the first number is walking to the ladder and around the ladder and going up the ladder. We don't go up the ladder first. We have to walk to the ladder first in our coordinates. So we start working on and thinking like that with our volume. All right, so the next way would be 1 by 5 by 8, or we could do 1 by 8 by 5. So you can see how it's the same 40 cubes. We're just changing up how they sit. So then earlier we had longer ones. And again, that's the same thing, is we're constantly rearranging these cubes to occupy different volume space. So the same volume, different space. So sometimes we can get this 40 cubic units into a space, but changing up how it is laid out. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.